Hello, welcome to another tutorial from David Ward. It's been a little while since I've made a tutorial, so I figured I'd jump in and maybe make a couple more. I'm just going to model something quick and easy today to get back in the groove here. What I'm going to be modeling is a coffee mug that I got from my grandfather. I didn't get it from my grandfather, it was his. And the logo here used to be a bee because he was in the Navy. And he was a CB, so it said CBs can do. But it's been through the dishwasher a few times because he used it as just to store pens and such. I actually drank from it, so I gotta wash it. Actually, I think I've had some coffee in it from this morning, so there's a little bit of the coffee dribbles there around the top. But in any case, what I'd like to do is model this and try to get that gold band on the top and the bottom. Probably not going to mess with the logo since it's so faded. Unless maybe I can do a quick Google search and see if I can't find that similar logo. But I would like to try to do the craculature look to the surface itself. So let's see what we can do here in Blender. I'm using version 3.41. I'm pretty sure there's probably more recent versions available, but that's the one I have right now, and that's what I'm going to use. Okay, beauty of Blender is you can use whatever version you like. So I'm using 3.4.1. So I'm going to delete the default cube. I've got my screencast keys set up here. I got those from a quick Google search for Blender 3 screencast keys, and I found a guy on GitHub named Nutty, N-U-T-T-I, that had this Python script that you could install as an add-on, and it looks like it works pretty well. In any case, let's start modeling this coffee mug. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to Shift A, and I'm going to add a mesh, and I'm going to add a circle. Sometimes you might add a cylinder, but I'm going to start from the basics. I'm going to add a circle. Now, to get the options for my circle here, you can see there's quite a few vertices that would be in there if we were in edit mode, but since we're just in regular 3D view object mode, we can kind of see where the vertices would be, where the straight lines are. So it's kind of jaggedy, and there's a lot of them. So I'm going to drop it down to 16, and you can see there's quite a bit fewer vertices there, and that's good. It'll look a little jaggedy while we're modeling it, but we'll throw in a subsurface modifier on there, and that'll smooth things up. So I like to model things, as you probably are aware, as low polygon as I can, and try to make them look really good, or as good as I can in low poly mode, and then throw in the SubSurf. That way it renders faster, and if you wanted to use it as a game asset, it would make things run smoother in the game engine as well. So the way game engines are getting nowadays, it doesn't make a big difference a lot of times how many vertices something small like this would have, but it's good practice to try to model things in a smaller method. Okay, so I've got the perimeter of my circle set up. I got the 16 vertices there, but there's nothing in the middle. So there's two ways we can go about this. I can set the fill type to triangle fan, and it'll fill it in. Triangle fan, triangle fan. If you guys ever heard of that They Might Be Giants Triangle Man song. Anyways, we can do that, triangle fan, and now my circle's ready to start working with. If I tab into edit mode, you can see all of the triangles in this triangle fan. So that works pretty well. The other method is if I just select the center vertex there and delete that, it deletes my triangle fan, and I can hold down Alt and right click on the perimeter circle that we can still see, and I hit the E button to extrude, and I'm just going to go ahead and click. I'm not going to move my mouse. I don't want to move it. I just want to extrude it. And now I'm going to scale it with the S button, scale it way down. If I hit the S button and hit 0, it's going to pretty much do the exact same thing as the triangle fan. But the difference being is that there are still 16 vertices that are right here in the middle. So if I just grab one randomly, you can see they're not all together. So the way we can fix that, I'll show you here in a moment, but the benefit to doing this in this manner is since there's still 16 vertices there, that means that's still a circle. It's minuscule, tiny circle, but it's still there. So that means you can add loops to there. So I'm going to add a couple of loops there just so we have a smoother surface there. Go ahead and click and set that into place. And now, double click, I hit A twice. In earlier versions of Blender, you could just hit A to select all and A again to deselect all. But I think since 3.0 came out, it might have been 2.8, you have to double tap A to deselect. A selects all, double tap A deselects all. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the C button to bring up my I don't even remember what that's called, the circle select. So I'm just going to select all of those vertices in there. You could also hit the B button to click and drag a selection there. So I want those all selected, and now I'm going to go down here to vertex, and I'm going to, I guess it's not under that. If you hit the M button, you're going to merge. So I'm going to merge them at the center. So now, if I double click the A button and I click somewhere in the random, okay, so they're still there. So one thing we might need to do is turn on the X-ray. So we're going to turn on the X-ray so we can see through everything, and make sure I get my vertex, select all that. Now you can see all of those orange lines, those sun rays looking things. That means all of the vertices there in the middle are selected. So sometimes if you want to select things that you can't see, you have to turn on the X-ray mode. So now hit M and at center, and now there's only the one vertex there, just like the triangle fan. Okay, so I'm going to turn off X-ray. Another side note, if you turn on X-ray and it's just too transparent, you can change the transparency of it. And the way you do that is you click the little down arrow there, and you see the option for X-ray. Right now it's half visible. So if I wanted to bump it all the way to 1, it's basically, you can still do things and not see through it, but you can select all the vertices that are underneath the cursor at the time. So in any case, I'm going to select the outer perimeter, and in my coffee mug, if I bring it back over here, you can see, it's kind of hard to see in this photo, but it goes up underneath a little bit, and then it kind of comes down for the part that sits on the tabletop or desktop or whatever, and it kind of rounds out. So I'm going to try to do that. So first off, I've got the outer edge selected. I'm going to hit 1 to go in the front view, and I'm going to go ahead and hit E again. And I'm not going to move it yet. Actually, I'm going to move it on the Z axis. I'm going to move it down just a little bit. So I hit the Z button and bring that down just a bit, and then I'm going to scale it up. Okay. I'm going to hit the E button again. This time I'm not going to move my mouse at all or the Z or anything. I'm just going to click my left mouse button just to lock that extrude in place, and I'm going to scale it up hitting the S button. So like so. And now you can see we have a little bit of a lip forming there. Now sometimes if you're running into an issue where, let me undo this so I can show you what I'm talking about. I still have that extruded and locked in. But sometimes if you hit the this button here, the proportional editing, which is the O button, it moves things that are nearby what's selected. So if I just grab this vertex here and moved it, you can see it moves a lot of stuff. And that's handy for modeling things like faces and things like that. You can get a nice smooth transition. But in this case, I don't want that. So if you're trying to move something around and it's doing that, it's because you have proportional editing turned on. So let's turn that back off. You can hit the O button. And another thing while we're talking about the proportional editing, you hit the O, and say you have two different models here. Let me just duplicate this, Shift D, just to move this up, just to show you. And if you have, it's in the same model, it's two different meshes, but it's in the same model. And we have the proportional editing turned on. If I grab this, you see it moves both of them. But what if I just want to move one of them? Well, there's a trick you can do. You can click on this again, or let's see, I think, right, you can click on the little mountain-looking thing there and go connected only. And you see it puts a hole in the middle of that circle. So that tells you that it's only going to be that mesh that it's affecting. You can also do it with the keyboard Alt-O. Turns the connected on and off. Alt-O. And again, you can tell which one is on by if there's a hole in the middle, like a donut, or, well, there we go, a donut, or like a target sign. Okay, So I'm going to turn that off altogether for now. I'm going to hit Control L to select everything that's connected to that particular vertex that was selected. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So we're going to go back to our coffee mug base. So I'm going to select the loop there. I held down Alt and right-clicked, and you might have to do this a couple of times to get the right loop because there's two loops right now in the exact same space. So if I do that one, that's the original loop, and I want the loop that I had scaled outward. So I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to go ahead and scale it this time. So there we go. Okay, so let's keep modeling. We're going to go on up the sides. So I'm going to hit the E button to extrude one more time, and the Z button to go straight up. Although I'm going to come up about to there, I'm going to go and scale it out so it has a nice rounded edge. And I'm going to go and scale up again, or extrude up on the Z-axis. I'm going to start scaling it back in. Come up a little further, E. There we go. And if we can look at the mug here, you see it has a kind of a flared base at the bottom, and then it kind of almost comes almost straight up, but it does have a little bit of kind of a barrel shape to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to this point here, which is about where we are in our modeling, and I'm going to go ahead and extrude all the way up to the top. And then we'll add in some loops to expand out the kind of the barrel shape. Okay, so we've got this here. Let's go and extrude one more time, way up, zoom out, scroll on my mouse wheel up and down to zoom out in case you're not familiar. G on the Z-axis to pull it all the way up to about there. Okay, and then like I said, we can add a couple of loops in the middle there to kind of give it that barrel shape. So I'm going to hit Control R, and it's going to put a loop around the middle. Scroll my mouse wheel up, and let's go ahead and put 3 in there. Go ahead and click that into place, and go ahead and click it again to lock it in. Scale it up just a bit, and then I'm going to grab that middle one, right-click, and Alt to get just that loop, and I'm going to scale that one. Okay, so now we're looking at kind of a basic mug shape. Now, as I said in the beginning, it's kind of a jaggedy looking, it's low polygon looking. We want to smooth that up, so one easy way we can do it without adding any extra vertices or anything is just to go to Object, Shade, Smooth, and it takes all those jagged edges out. Now, I also mentioned a subsurface modifier. If we go to our modifiers tab, the little wrench looking thing there, icon, and we go to Add Modifier, and I'm going to go down to Subdivision Surface. SubSurf modifiers for short, SubSurf, Subdivision Surface. Okay, so you can see it smoothed it up. If we turn that back to flat shading, you can see it added some extra vertices in there. Although they're added there virtually. They're not actually on the model unless we go to this little down arrow and hit Apply, and then it will add all those in. But we don't want to do that just yet. So let's go back to Shade Smooth. And one thing I like to do, there's a little bit, if we look in our photo reference again, there's a little bit of a crease right here where that rounded, the flared area comes to the main part of the mug. So I want to add in another loop there so that our mesh will have more of a crease. So I'm going to tab back into edit mode. I'm going to add in another loop right about there, just slightly above that. The closer these are together, the sharper that crease is going to be. So if we tab back out, you can kind of see that crease is forming there now. I'd like it to be a little more pronounced, so I'm going to go ahead and scale that new loop in just a bit more. I'm going to add another one right there above it. So we tab back out, and you can see now it's a pretty defined loop, or crease there. Okay, so now we've got our main shape done. Let's go ahead and let's do the inside of the mug. There's 2 ways you can do this. There's always multiple ways to skin a cat, as the phrase goes. We're not skinning any cats here, but in any case, you can go the easy route, and you can add in another modifier. This one is going to be called a solidify, and what the solidify modifier does is just that. It solidifies a thin mesh that has no thickness at all. You can add some thickness to it by just adding this modifier. So that works really well for just such an occasion if you want to add it a coffee mug and didn't want to go in through the hassle of worrying about the inside of it and all that. And you can change the thickness here, and you can see it works for the coffee mug like that. So that works pretty well. And this modifier works really well on clothing. If you just want to model just the general clothing and you don't want to worry about like the cuffs on the sleeve or anything like that, you can add this and it'll solidify for you. You can also specify which vertices you want this. So like for example, say I only want the solidify to be around this top edge. I'm going to add a vertex group, grab all these. See, this is the X-ray. If I do it as it's defined, it's kind of hard to see what's going on, but set all the way to 1, you can still see through it when it's in edit mode. So that's good. Okay, so like I said, I want to add a vertex group to show you the example of how the solidify works. So I'm going to select all of these guys here, and I'm going to go to this little triangle shape here, object data properties, click on that, and go under vertex group and hit the little plus sign. I'm going to just name this one solidify, if I can spell it correctly, solidify example. And I'm going to assign the selected vertices to that vertex group. Now I'm going to tab back out, and I'm going to go back to my modifiers tab. And the vertex group, I'm going to say solidify example. You can see it didn't really do much. Kind of took it off. But I'm going to go opposite. So it took it on the vertices that were not part of that vertex group, if that makes sense. So that's the way you can mess with that thickness for your mug or clothing or whatever. But I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. Just X that out, and I'm going to model it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that vertex group. It doesn't matter, you can leave it on there, but it might be confusing if you're working on this in the future and you're like, what was that for? But it doesn't matter in any case. All right, so grab my top loop there, Alt right click, select the whole thing, and I'm going to hit the E button to extrude. I'm just going to go ahead and click my mouse because I don't want to go up or down or left or right. I just want to scale it. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale it, give it a nice sharp edge on the edge of the lip there. Again, E, and then just click and scale it down. Don't want to get too thick. Okay, getting there. One more time, scale it just a bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and start going down into the inside of the mug now. Okay, so I'm going to go into the front view, and we still have X-ray turned on so I can see what's going on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and do like I did on the outside and just scale it, extrude it and scale it, or not scale it, but just move it all the way down to about, we'll go about right there. And I'm going to go ahead and extrude it one more time, scale it just a bit, and I'm going to come down a little bit so I have kind of a rounded inside. I'm going to do that one more time. Scale it down. Okay, and I'm going to rotate, and let's look inside here now. I'm going to go ahead and do like I did with the triangle fan at the very beginning. I'm going to extrude once, just click, and I'm going to hit S0. So I'm going to merge all of these vertices here in the middle. I'm going to go Alt-M, or that's a split, just M by itself. I'm going to merge them at the center. Okay, so now we have, the inside of our coffee mug, but it's not following the same shape as the outside, which it doesn't make a big difference, but we're designing this nice coffee mug. We should, anything worth doing is worth doing well. So while in your render it may not show up being this on a desk or a table or something, but we're focusing on making this nice looking model, so let's do it as best we can. Okay, so do the same thing we did on the outside, add a few loops on the inside. So I'm going to hit Control R, and you can see that yellow line, if I just move my mouse slightly, right now it's on the outside of the mug, but if I move it a little bit further down, it jumps to the inside. So I want to put 3 loops on there, just like I did the outside. So I'm just going to scroll my mouse wheel up until I see 3 yellow lines, and I'm just going to go ahead and click again. So there we go. All right, so I'm going to scale those up a little bit, and they're going to match the outside of the mug. So I've got the top one and the bottom one, and now I just want the middle one, so I'm going to hit AA and right click with Alt selected on the middle, scale that up a little bit. Okay, so now we have a nice inside of the mug that matches the outside of the mug. Okay, so let's add one more loop here, because you can see, let me show you what I'm talking about. Sometimes if you don't have enough loops, your topology, your mesh starts looking not quite what you would like it to. And I can see this edge right here is not quite what I want. It's not as smooth as I would like it. So I'm going to go back into edit mode and I'm going to add one more loop right about there. And that makes it look quite a bit better. Okay, so we got the basic mug shape. Let's go ahead and take another look at the reference here. Got the basic mug shape. This one might be a little too tall. But we'll shorten it down a little bit. Just going to select all of that and SZ, scale it down just a bit, and then we're going to come down. Okay. All right, let's take one more look here. Okay, so that might be a little too short, but in any case, I can start working on the handle. So that's kind of just kind of a triangle shape itself, kind of a half of a triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude out from the side and see if I can't make it look similar to that. All right, so let's select here. I'm going to add one more loop in about right there, so I can add the handle in from this loop here. Let's go to our top view, and since this face is not exactly halfway, I'm going to select everything and I'm going to rotate it just a bit. You can see down here in the bottom left how much I'm rotating it. Since there's 16 sides, it looks like an incremental rotation of halfway would be right at, I want to say 12% or 12 degrees. But that's not quite right, is it? They're not lining up. Okay, so maybe it's right at 11 degrees. Okay, so we'll make it 11 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to grab this part here and let's add one more loop. Actually, I can grab this one here. Okay, so this is going to be the handle of our mug here, our Stein mug. Okay, so I'm going to bring those out, and then I'm going to skinny them up a little bit, flatten them up. So I'm going to grab this one, scale it on the Z-axis a little bit, rotate it so it's nice and flat, bring it up so that the top part is a little more flat. I'm going to grab this guy, scale this one down, rotate it. Okay, and now I'm going to, another way you can extrude besides just hitting E and moving is you can hold down the control button and just start clicking, and it'll automatically extrude where you're clicking. So this is sticking out a little too far, but we'll fix it up here shortly. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and move that, and I'm going to move all this. And this is a good place to use the proportional editing. So I'll turn that back on, and I want to make sure it's only what's selected because look, it's moving that top one too, and I don't want that, so I'm going to hit Alt-O, and now it's just that one. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in there, move that one to where I can connect it to the bottom of this part here. I'm going to rotate that a little bit. And what I'm doing here, you see that circle, that's the fall off for the proportional editing. If I make it really big, it can, it affects quite a bit, but if I narrow it down, it's just going to do the part that I want it to. Okay. All right, so one way to get these to seamlessly merge is just delete these faces that are kind of separating them. And then I can go to my vertex mode and select this vertex and hold down Shift and then select that vertex, and I can go M at last. And what that does is it merges those two vertices at the last one that I selected. If I go this way, Shift, select that one, and I do the same thing, M, and this time I go at first, it's going to go to the first one. But I don't want that one, I want the last one. And these other ones at center, that's what I did to get all of the vertices merged in the center for the triangle fan mode. At the cursor, would just merge them together wherever the 3D cursor happens to be. I don't actually see it. Oh, here it's at the very bottom. So I don't want that one. Collapse, I'm actually not sure what that one does. I haven't done anything with that one before. But in any case, let's just go at last. Boom. Okay. Let's go ahead and finish sewing this all together. Oh, okay, so now we have our basic mug handle. And as you can see, it looks kind of low polygon, so let's clean that up a little bit. Tab into edit mode. And first off, let's look at our reference. There we go. This part here in the very top of the handle's flattened out, and then it gets a little thinner on this area as well. Can't really see that from this picture, but we'll try to see if we can't make it look a little closer to that. So I'll grab these, still in X-ray mode. Grab these, scale them on the Z-axis, like so. And then I'm going to grab this guy, just kind of move them. Almost there. Give this a little bit of a point there. Okay, so this is looking all right. However, just the model itself, the mug has a little bit higher resolution with the vertex count than the handle does. The handle only has basically just the 4 vertices per section, whereas the mug, has 16. So the way we can do that, we can clean that up, is we can add a loop right here down the middle, like so, and that will add an extra vertex around the edge there, so it'll help clean up the. Go to top view. We can make it a little skinnier on the y-axis. Y is the to and fro. Z is up and down, and X is left and right. So you see that added the loop on the outside of the handle, but it didn't do it on the inside. So I'm going to add another loop here on the inside, just like so. And I'm going to go ahead and skinny these guys up a little bit, like that. Okay, so this is looking pretty close to my reference. Maybe this one not quite so skinny. This one a little. I'm going to turn off the proportional editing. Sometimes it doesn't work like I want it to. Another thing we can do to add in some more sharpness to our mug here is there's 2 ways we can do it. One is kind of frowned upon amongst the modeling community because it adds in too many vertices per, or too many edges per vertex. So I just select the outer edge of that, and I hit the W and bevel edge right there. You can see it adds a sharp edge. Well, okay, that makes it look nice and sharp here on the handle, but then it kind of messes with where it's connected to the mug. So it adds in this weird topology and makes this no longer a 4-sided polygon. And with modeling, you want to try as hard as you can to keep your polygons to be 4 or 3-sided, preferably 4 if you can. But if it gets 5-sided, then it turns it into an n-gon, and it doesn't always look correct. So I'm going to undo that. Okay, and we'll just add in a loop around there. And I'll add a little bit more sharpness there, and I'm going to add in a loop around there. Okay, so that's looking a little better. Another way we can make it look a little better is on our subdivision surface. Just bump that up to 2. Boom. There we go. Nice and pretty. Okay, so there's a couple of things left to do. I mean, we're pretty well done modeling, and go ahead and save this real quick. Okay, so I got it saved, and we're about ready to start the texturing. But I tell you what, I'm going to put that into a second episode. This one ran a little longer. I'm not exactly sure how long it has ran. I don't see a timer. Oh, there it is. 28, almost 30 minutes. So that's a good place to stop for this first lesson. One thing I want to fix really quick. It looks like this loop here needs to be a little skinnier. So that's better. All right, so I'm going to save that. And in part 2, we'll get to texturing this, putting on the UV coordinates and such, finding a nice texture image to put on there. I'll jump into Photoshop. Actually, there's a website that I'm going to use instead. It's absolutely free. It's called Photopea, and it has a lot of the same features that Photoshop has, but it's absolutely free. You don't have to install anything or download anything or pay any subscriptions or anything. It's and it's just like Photoshop. So I'll show you that in part 2. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in part 2.